Coming up on Mountain News this morning, doctors in our region hopes to reduce its patient readmission rate with some new equipment, and an Eastern Kentucky school district helps get students prepared for the real world after graduation.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News this morning.
Good morning to you. It is Thursday. I'm Dakota Makris. It's just before 5 o'clock here. Good morning to you. Let's take it over to Brandon for a look at our forecast. And Brandon, just before we came on the air, you looked over at the radar and you said, well, there's a thin sheet of ice over in Lexington.
Yeah,
so
exactly. We've gotten some reports of some colder air in some of those northern counties, which is causing some freezing rain and a little thin sheet of ice in some locations. So be aware of that, especially in the northern counties or the higher elevations. Most of us warm enough this morning to see some rain, but you see some of that pink showing up there from basically, let's say, Madison County, even into parts of Pulaski County north. So we're going to keep a close eye on that this morning. Some snow off just to our further north there, that pink showing up on Doppler radar. But most of the action this morning is rain because we are warm enough for that. Again, I think it's spotty if you're seeing that. 45 Jonesville, Middlesboro, 43 Jacksboro, but a lot of 30s out there. If you are above freezing, like Pikeville and Logan, all those just to the south there, you're going to be okay. But if you're right at freezing or below, like Irvin, Jackson, Prestonsburg, Moorhead, and Ashland, could be a bit tricky. So your breakfast forecast, I think it's mostly rain. Again, some icing possible in those northern areas, but I think the moisture kind of lacking up that way for now. That will not be the case later on today, and this will probably be the coldest part of the day because thanks to an approaching warm front, temperatures are going to go up all the way through midnight. Dakota?
All right, Brendan, thank you so much. Well, NATO officials confirm Russia has begun attacking Ukraine. Condemnation started pouring in from leaders around the world as explosions were heard in multiple Ukrainian cities. President Joe Biden tweeted, quote, "Russia alone is responsible for the death and destruction this attack will bring, and the United States and its allies and partners will respond in a united and decisive way." Bradley Blackburn reports from UN headquarters in New York.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine is now underway. Explosions were seen and heard across the country overnight. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced the start of the offensive in a pre-dawn speech. Putin said the action was necessary to protect civilians and restore order. He said Russia's goals include the, quote, demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. Putin called on the Ukrainian military to surrender and warned other nations not to interfere. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky appeared on television as the invasion got underway. He urged people not to panic and said he had just spoken with President Biden. The White House condemned what it called an unprovoked and unjustified attack by Russia. Here at the United Nations, diplomats gathered for an Emergency Security Council meeting. It's the Council's second emergency meeting this week on Ukraine.
We're here for one reason and one reason only: to ask Russia to stop.
During last night's session, the Ukrainian ambassador confronted his Russian counterpart.
There is no purgatory for war criminals. They go straight to hell, Ambassador.
The Security Council is expected to vote on a resolution against Russia today. However, it is unlikely to pass because, as a permanent council member, Russia holds veto power. Bradley Blackburn, CBS News, New York.
Well, President Joe Biden says later today he'll be meeting with the leaders of the G7 and other allies and partners to impose further sanctions on Russia. The president is expected to deliver public remarks on those sanctions sometime this afternoon. Of course, we'll keep you updated. Well, back here in the Commonwealth, COVID-19 numbers continue to decline. Here's a look at the state's COVID report. Kentucky added 2,689 new cases yesterday. Well, that increased our state's total numbers to more than 1,200,000. The state also added 25 new deaths, bringing the total death toll to 13,689. The positivity rate is now below 11% at 10.80%. And many people who have had COVID-19 but recovered are seeing lingering health issues weeks to months after recovery. Something new doctors say they have seen patients suffer from post-COVID are heart problems. Well, they have seen patients that previously had heart failure issues, but they are also seeing patients that have no previous heart health issues complain.
COVID is a multi-organ system disease. It's not just the lungs. It definitely affects the heart. So when you're actually sick with it, you can get an inflammation called myocarditis. You can get an inflammation of the surrounding of the heart called pericarditis. You can even get problems with the electrical pattern of the heart because of that inflammation.
Well, Dr. Worthy says there are several case studies on the effect COVID can have long-term on your heart, but it is still under research. Well, doctors at Baptist Health Corbin hope to reduce heart failure readmissions to the hospital. Within the last 6 months, Baptist Health partnered with Sensible Medical to begin using new equipment called the REDS device. Doctors can effectively monitor fluid in patients' lungs to determine whether or not they are ready to be released from the hospital within just 1 minute.
Reminding them that this decreases the blood test, having to draw blood from a patient and waiting hours for treatment, and it's much more precise. So it's a really great tool for patients. It's a great tool for those taking care of patients.
Well, the device helps doctors to determine when they can release the patient from the hospital, and it has decreased the readmission of heart failure patients so far. Well, Kentucky lawmakers are working to address the nursing shortage in the state. The Senate committee passed a bill aimed at retaining and recruiting nurses, but members of the Kentucky Nursing Association say SB 10 does not go far enough. Now, they propose paying nursing faculty more money and providing retention bonuses to nurses that remain in Kentucky.
But this is not just related to hospitals, it's related to long-term health care facilities, anybody else who relies on nursing.
SB 10 passed unanimously out of committee in a 10-0 vote. Well, the Floyd County School District is celebrating CTE Month. Now, officials say CTE, or Career and Technical Education, is an important part of a complete education for many students. Along with offering a way for students to find a lifelong career, the district also offers certifications to give young people a head start. Now, officials say students are starting to explore careers they may be passionate about even earlier than high school.
We actually have the 8th grade schools coming up here to tour next month. So each one has picked a day. So we have multiple 8th grade classes coming up here from each of the schools. So we're very excited about that.
Well, Dr. Shannon says preparing the next generation is important as the current workforce is aging. Well, thank you so much for getting your Thursday morning started with us here on Mountain News this morning. When we come back, a doghouse is sold at auction after being struck by something out of this world. That's on the way.
And chances for heavy rain will continue to cause problems for much of our region for the next 24 hours. I'll have the latest forecast in about 3 minutes.